morning. Welcome, everyone. I am Karen Gabler, and my pronouns are she, her, and hers. I am chair of the worship committee, tri-chair of the anti-racism team, and a member of our choir led by our talented Tom Hoynaki. So thank you, Tom, for all the music you bring to our church. I am happy to stand in as host today as Reverend Suzanne is at a family wedding in Delaware. And I will be helped by Ginger Lazarus, a wonderful dedicated member of our worship committee, and she will be leading us in joys and sorrows. So it's great to see everyone here, all your lovely faces. Shana Tova, Happy New Year to all our Jewish friends. Today, we mark the Jewish high holidays, and we have a guest speaker of Jewish descent. Reverend Julianne Silberman Bunn is a lifelong Unitarian Universalist. She was jointly ordained by two congregations in New Jersey in 1992, and since then she's served on 6 congregations in 5 states. And now she is full-time chaplain at New England Hospice. So welcome, Julie. And she is living in a rustic cabin with her husband, Ken, and their coon cat, Miss Honey, in Western Massachusetts. So welcome. We're so glad you're here. All right, here we go. Our church is a vibrant, caring community dedicated to love and service. All who share our values are welcome here. If you are joining us for the first time, we have a greeter, Kathy Sang. So could you wave your hand? And if you have any questions, ask Kathy Sang after the service. She'll be able to answer them for you. And we also want to thank our usher, Wendy Mastronardi, and our coffee hosts, Wendy and Mary Hildebrand. So thank you for keeping our church going. Just a couple of quick announcements before we start. We want to thank the fellowship team for hosting a community dinner last night. There was a good turnout, great conversation, and it's ways to bring our community together that we appreciate fellowship. Thank you. And then Jean Tay is starting a new program here called Silent Sanctuary. And for those who are interested in gathering in silence. So she will open the sanctuary every first and third Tuesday, starting October 15th. She will open the sanctuary from 5:30 to 6 p.m. for silent meditation. So we're going to try this program for 3 months, see what the interest is, and go from there. So if you have questions, ask Jean, and she would be able to answer what she's planning for this new program. This past week, Reverend Suzanne sent out 1,100 vote forward letters written by members of this congregation. And our voting team has already sent out 1,000 postcards. So this is in addition to what you're doing individually, and we know how important this upcoming election is. So if you want to encourage more voting, you can do phone banking and canvassing, and you can find outlets to do that, opportunities, in our midweek update, because it's in all the information is there. So help yourself. And also there's information and wanting volunteers for the caring committee, the newly formed caring committee. And if you need to request help from the caring community, that's in the midweek update as well. All right, now for those who need access to our order of service, you can hold your phone up and click on this QR code, and you will get to the order of service electronically. You can also link it through, get the link through our worship announcement in your inbox. And in addition, you can go to our homepage on the website and click on More, and it'll drop down to the worship box, and you'll get the order of service there. So we have an announcement from Jane Foley of the RE Committee.
Karen, you can help me. Oh, okay. Can you hold that, please?
Sure.
So Halloween is right around the corner, and we have great Halloween parties here at NUUC. The next one is Saturday, October 19th, 6 o'clock in Parish Hall. It's all ages. It's not just for kids. I know sometimes Halloween is hard to make a decision. Like sometimes you want to be a witch, right? So you wear your witch hat. Sometimes, right, you want to be Shrek. You say, donkey. And you want to be Shrek. And sometimes you want to be a pirate. I have all the things. If you don't have a costume, I have some things for you. So please, all ages come. It will be lots of fun. October 19th at 6 p.m.
And is that in the supper room?
Parish Hall.
Parish Hall. Thank you, Jane.
Thank you.
Okay, now it's time to turn to your friends and neighbors and in this beloved community and say hello, welcome, good morning. Take a few minutes to do that. Okay, so to have time with our community. Thank you, everyone. And now I'm going to turn it over to Reverend Julianne, and we have a wonderful service ahead.
And I'm going to share with you a reading this morning for our centering that is called I Side with the People by Reverend Drew Patton from First Presbyterian Church of Berkeley, and shared with Drew's consent. If they ever ask you, which side are you on? Tell them plainly, I side with the people. With the precious ones, all, the integral, the soft, and the fierce, irreplaceable, the beloved, if only by God and trees who were born, who breathe and survive, say I side with those who keep watch. Beneath the bright screaming arc of bombs, with those who hide in dark doorways, or who through the moonlight flee, with those who stay and fight, and with those kept up all night by hunger and grief and terror and rage, by desperate, unruly hope, who are good and green at the root, who are more than the worst they've ever done, who do their best to love and still pass on the hurt in themselves that they hate. But what when they take sides against each other, the people against even themselves, side with whatever is human in them, what is fragile and feeling and flesh, side with the truth of our stories, side with the fact of our pain, side with defiant insistence on freedom, side there again and again, side there today and tomorrow, side there the rest of your life, side there together until we belong, each one to each other. If ever they ask you, which side are you on? Say it doesn't work like that. Tell them you side with the people, and abide where the people are at. And now we have some friends coming up to light our chalice. And Dan, thank you. And now we light the symbol of our faith, the flaming chalice. And here to light ours is Dan, who is the chair of our IT committee.
This year we are experimenting with some new options for our covenant space here in worship, trying different ways to express together our shared sense of purpose. Recently, we've tried out using our new mission statement in the space. Today, we'll be sharing the Blake Covenant from the 19th century, similar to our previous covenant, but different in a couple key ways. I invite you now to rise in body or in spirit and join me as you feel comfortable. The words will appear up on the screen. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its prayer. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love,
and to
help one another.
And please remain standing as we sing our opening hymn, "O Hear My People," 219 in the gray hymnal. And the lyrics will appear up here on the screen. Please be seated. I don't know how many of you know that that is a Yom Kippur hymn that is specifically designed to talk about having our name sealed in the book of life. And that's what happens in Jewish community. We cleanse ourselves in that time between Rosh Hashanah, which happened last week and was the honoring of the new year, and then in this 10 days in between, which I'll talk a little bit about, is the time we make our amends. We say our apologies. We let go of the things that have harmed us over the course of this past year. And then at the end of this coming week, when we reach Yom Kippur, which is the Day of Atonement, which can also be pronounced at one mint, it is a time when we come back to ourselves, having made our amends and said our forgiveness, and come right to ourselves in that moment. And then the book of life is sealed for the next year to come. So that's why that's referred to in that hymn. And now we have this wonderful story. I can do it from here. I'm good. So today's story is called Desmond Gets Free, and it's written by a man named Matt Mayer, who's studying to be a chaplain. So that's a good connection with me, because that's what I do for work these days, is that I'm a hospice chaplain, and I spend my days with people who are in the last period of their lives. So let us move on to the next slide. For all those working to build a new world of justice, equity, and compassion, Desmond the mouse lived in the most beautiful meadow in all the land. And every morning, Desmond woke with the sunrise and would spend the day playing in the meadow. That sounds like a lovely life. And every evening, Desmond would go to sleep in the middle of that meadow under the beautiful starry sky. And there Desmond watches the stars. One night, though, Desmond awoke when it was still dark out. He tried to roll over to a more comfortable spot, but something wasn't right. Desmond realized that his tail was stuck right to the ground and beginning to throb in pain. Now, it's important for all of us to remember that tails have feelings. They do. And as his tail began to throb, he felt behind him, and there was a huge boulder that seemed to have fallen in the middle of the meadow, just on his tail. Desmond pushed on the boulder and tugged on his tail, and he pushed on the boulder and he tugged on his tail, and he pushed and tugged and pushed and tugged, but it was no use. When he was out of breath and had just about given up, he saw a giraffe nearby in the grass. Good news, he thought. Oh, giraffe, Desmond cried. Could you please push the boulder a few inches in the other direction so that I could go free? And the giraffe looked at Desmond and laughed the way giraffes do. Do you know how a giraffe laughs? I'm not sure I know how a giraffe laughs, but I bet it's hard to hear since it's way up in the sky. Silly mouse, said the giraffe. That's no boulder. That's an elephant that's fallen asleep in the middle of the meadow, just on your tail. Well, if you could just wake the elephant and ask him to roll over just a few inches in the other direction, I could go free. Now, do you think waking an elephant is a good idea? I'm not sure I do. Well, replied the giraffe, you know what they say about letting sleeping elephants lie. I find it's best to not get involved in other animals' business. I find it's best to remain neutral in times like this. Desmond quietly replied, well, I do not appreciate your neutrality. The giraffe wandered off, and Desmond tried calling out to the elephant to wake him up, but those giant ears were just too far away on the other side of the giant elephant body. So again, Desmond pushed on the elephant and tugged on his tail. He pushed and he tugged and he pushed and he tugged, but it was no use. When he was out of breath and had just about given up again, a gazelle wandered by. Oh, gazelle, he cried, oh, gazelle, it seems that an elephant has fallen asleep just on my tail in the middle of this meadow. I'm stuck and it hurts. I wonder if you could gently wake him and ask him to roll over just a few inches in the other direction so I might go free. Well, said the gazelle, I see your problem there. But you know what they say about letting sleeping elephants lie. I find it's best not to get involved in other animals' business. I find it's best to remain neutral in times like these. Desmond replied almost to himself this time, I do not appreciate your neutrality. And Desmond tried again to call out to the elephant. He tried again to push the giant animal away. He tried again and again to tug his little tail free, but it was no use. When he was out of breath and had just about given up for the last time, he saw another mouse wandering through the meadow. My name is Nelson. Nelson, this giant elephant has fallen asleep just on my tail in the middle of this meadow. I wonder if you might run over and call out into his giant ears and ask him to roll over just a few inches in the other direction so I could go free, Desmond asked. Of course, said Nelson. Nelson ran all the way to the other end of the giant elephant body, and he called up to those giant elephant ears at the top of that giant elephant head, but the elephant didn't budge. The elephant heard Nelson's small voice far away, but he felt too comfortable to move. Nelson ran back to Desmond, a little out of breath, and said, I have an idea. Don't move. And he ran off. I won't, muttered Desmond. A little while later, though, Nelson emerged through the tall grass, and he wasn't alone. Nelson had found 3 other mouse friends to help him, and each one of them had also brought 3 friends. The whole group of them ran over to the giant head of that giant elephant, and one mouse scrambled up onto the shoulders of another, and another mouse scrambled up on her shoulders. And then one after another, they climbed up until the whole group of them had formed a long mouse ladder right up the side of the elephant. At last, Nelson climbed up on the shoulders of his mouse friends, one on top of the other, until he was way up on that giant elephant head, standing next to that giant elephant ear. Excuse me, he called out right into that ear. It seems you've fallen asleep on my friend's tail in the middle of this meadow. I wonder if you could just roll over a few inches in the other direction so he might go free. The giant elephant made a low groan. Grumph. I'm comfortable just where I am. Go away. So Nelson asked more of his mouse friends to climb up, and one by one they helped each other up the side of the elephant. And one by one they called out into the giant elephant ear on top of the giant elephant head. Again, the giant elephant made a low groan. Grumph! I'm comfortable just where I am. Go away. Then Nelson had an idea. He whispered to the mice, and then all at once they yelled out together, Excuse us! It seems you've fallen asleep on our friend's tail in the middle of this meadow. Roll over a few inches in the other direction so he can go free. There's an awful lot of mice on this elephant's ear. And you know, elephants really don't like mice. It's always something that amuses me, that the largest animal is afraid of one of the smallest. This time, all those voices together right next to the elephant's ear were too loud to ignore. I was comfortable where I was, but I'll move over if you just agree to stop making such a racket, the elephant cried out. And then the elephant rolled over just a few inches in the other direction. Nelson and the other mice helped each other climb back down, and Desmond was finally free. Desmond and Nelson and all their mouse friends spent the rest of that beautiful day playing in the middle of that beautiful meadow. If you are neutral in a situation of injustice, you have chosen the side of the oppressor. If an elephant has its foot, the mouse will not appreciate your neutrality, said Archbishop Desmond Tutu. So thank you very much for listening to our story. And remember, you may want to be neutral, but not everybody's going to appreciate it. So sometimes you gotta take sides, okay? So now is the time that our children go to their programs, and those adults who work with them as well. Every day it is your tradition here to create together a time of quiet meditation, a time for us each to connect with our inner selves, our highest ideals, our own individual sense of the divine, however it is that we understand it. Let's begin this time by closing our eyes and breathing deeply. Feel your feet on the floor. Feel your body relaxing, sinking into your seat, and breathe. In our meditation today, we will first join in our centering song. Then we'll sit for a time of shared quiet. Then we will share joys and sorrows. And at the end, I will lead us in prayer.
It is our tradition in worship to share with one another the milestones of our lives, our personal joys and sorrows. We speak and listen with care so that our sharing knits us together in love and strength and community. If you have a sorrow to share, please come forward and speak at the mic so everyone can hear and see you. Folks on Zoom can type in the chat box, and I will read them aloud. Oh, yes? Yes? Okay. No sorrows today? Okay. I don't see any in the chat. Let us take a moment to hold all sorrows in our hearts, unspoken. May those who are hurting today know our love and support. May we reach out with kindness. And Wendy will light one candle as a beacon of care for all the sorrows spoken and unspoken today. And now I ask for all the joys you would like to share. Please come forward now if you have a joy to share, or type it in the chat box, and I will read them aloud. Now we light one more candle to shine out our thanks for all the many blessings in our lives.
In the name of all that is holy, we hold this time of meditation and prayer, this time of honoring what is sacred to us, be it nature or God or goodness or human community. We find that strength is woven into our companionship, our times together, our acknowledgement of the good and the not so good, the struggles and the strength. We ask only that our community find within itself the ability to hold one another, to hold all who come to gather with us in a spirit of love and compassion, that we have the wisdom to remember all those who are struggling the world over, those who are in places of combat, simply as civilians, children, women, animals, who have no stake in this battle, who have no weapons of self-defense, who are at the mercy of those who have taken up arms, who have been sacrificed as the ideals of some greater good, a good they cannot comprehend. We lift up on a beautiful fall morning, all the joy that comes with the celebration of the new year, of time with family, of love and compassion, of celebration, community and commitment. And we honor the fact that as with all things in life, in times of great joy, there is often great suffering and great pain in the world. We ask that our strength come from the joy and the times of peace and solace, and that that strength and that joy give us the strength we need to hold out for peace for all people, the world over, that all people may know the relief, the release of the mouse when the elephant has rolled off its tail. We are all at times that mouse. We live in a world of enormous elephants. May our world be filled with an army of mice who will fight for one another when elephants are too stubborn to move. Shalom, shalom. May it be so. Amen.
Our church is self-funded, supported by your generous annual pledge. You may also give to our weekly collection, which we split every month with a worthy group via our Giving Beyond Our Walls program. Remote folks can donate using the orange button at the top right corner of our homepage at melroseuu.org. For the month of October, half of our collection will go to the MUUC Ministers Discretionary Fund. Separate from our church budget, this fund goes to help members of our community who are struggling with basic expenses like food, housing, or medical bills. It's one of the ways we care for each other here. The fund is operated confidentially by Reverend Suzanne. Just email or phone her to make a request. Today for service music, I've chosen compositions by the Finnish composer Jean Sibelius, who incidentally wrote the music for our closing hymn today, We Would Be One. The Finns have had a long struggle for freedom over the centuries, and this impromptu that I'm going to play to is, I think, emblematic of the kind of elegy that we need at the moment for those who have suffered such great loss in the conflicts of the world today.
This is a reading called The Cry and the Call by Rabbi Ora Nitkin Kainer. Tekaya, the shout, Shevarim, the fracture, Trua, the breach. This year has contained so much alarm, so much fracture and fear of shatter. We know our society has been broken for a long time, but now the cracks are widening, chasms are forming, and we have been afraid of falling, of being consumed. We ourselves have shattered emotionally, physically, spiritually, politically. Shards of our hopes for ourselves, our communities, our country, our world surround us. And it's hard to move without feeling how they pierce us, feeling like a reminder of brokenness and of failure. Shevarim, one of the shofar's calls, is the Hebrew word for breaking, for fracture. It also means destruction, calamity, mashber. From the same root is the modern Hebrew word for crisis. But mashber is also the Hebrew word for a birthing stool. Tekaya, the shout, Shevarim, the shatter, Trua, the breaking open. What will this give birth to? Birth is terrifying, messy, laborious. Birth is painful and destructive. And it is awe-inspiring, God-like, creating new life in the world. What needs to die off so that the new life can come? What shatter needs to happen so that the world can be reworked, made fresh, made new? This is a birthing moment. It will demand our breath, our patience, our fierceness, our energy, the whole of who we are. It will be messy. It will be worth it. Tekaya, the call. Shevarim, the breaking into. Trua, the breaking open. We cannot do this alone. We cannot leave anyone behind, including our past selves, full of misjudgments and fears. We need everyone to be calling to each other, to be calling outwards, the world we are creating. We are calling out to the future. The shofar is not just an instrument of repentance. It is the symbol for the end of days. We are being called to move forward, called to believe. And here ends the reading. In this morning's story, the main character, Desmond, and he is a mouse. That mouse was named for a very important man in his own country and faith, but also all over the world. He became well known for his teachings on how to address injustice and forgiveness and reconciliation. That man was Bishop Desmond Tutu, the leader of the Anglican Church in South Africa. During Bishop Tutu's life, there were many forms of injustice built into how the country of South Africa was organized. The best known form of injustice in South Africa was called apartheid. And it was a system that gave very different opportunities to people based on the color of their skin. People with dark skin were unable to move up in society and were forced to live in situations and have education that was far below that of people who had lighter skin. Those lighter skinned people were known as colored people. And finally, there was the white population who received the most benefits and special treatment. And as unfair as it was the law of the country, and it made it very hard for people to receive much, if any kind of justice. There was so much injustice everywhere. So much injustice that a young Indian lawyer who had moved to South Africa to start his career became inspired to fight for injustice. And he went on to be one of the most influential figures in the nonviolent movement for justice, Mohandas K. Gandhi was a colored man in South Africa. And in a world where we separate people and animals and mark some as less than others, it becomes easy for injustice to take place. I grew up hearing stories of injustice and knowing that the world was a more difficult place for some people simply because of who they were. My grandparents came to America from Warsaw in 1920. Today, Warsaw is in Poland, but at the time, it was in Russia. My grandparents came because they were Jews, and it was very hard for Jewish people to find safety in Europe at the time. Many strange and false stories were told about Jewish people, and sadly, they often still are. My grandparents arrived in New York and built a life with their two older children. And 100 years ago, last Saturday, they had their third son, my father, who was born in Brooklyn, New York. He got the good American name, unlike his brothers, Aaron and Solomon. My father was Seymour. Very American. Our family were very observant Jews, but by the time my father was old enough to move away from his parents, he became less observant of the Jewish practices that he had known in his childhood and that were so important to his family. Years passed, and my father went to graduate school at the University of Pittsburgh Dental School. It was 1945 when he entered dental school. And one of the first exams given was scheduled for Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, a very sacred day. And even though my father was no longer an observant Jew, he could not bring himself to take the exam. My father was a very ethical man. He believed in justice. He fought for justice. My first social justice action was one my father took me on when I was 2. He and his friend Jim, an African American man who had a daughter 1 week older than me, so she was also 2, went walking door to door in the city of Trenton in 1968. Jim holding me, Dad holding Janie, knocking on doors to talk about race relations. It is seared into my existence that all people are equal. My father did a good job of making that clear. I learned through my childhood about treating people all the same. I never knew this until I was an adult. And I listened to an NPR program about people being eyewitnesses to crime. And that unless you see people of different cultures when you are a child, it is unlikely that you will accurately identify people as an adult. My children can't do it. My children have no concept of people of different nationalities. My kids are Midwestern white boys who came from Ohio. I grew up in the inner city of Trenton, New Jersey. When I was brought home from the hospital as an infant, I was handed over to my second mom. She had started her relationship with my parents more than 15 years earlier when they first moved to Trenton as a housekeeper. She was a woman who had a third grade education from a rural black school in South Carolina. She was brilliant, but didn't get any opportunities. She was passionate about her faith, and she lived to be 104. The longest lived of my three parents, the only one to meet my husband and children and attend my wedding. There was also a Japanese graduate student who lived in my parents' home for many years. I have no problem when I'm given tests to identify people. It does make a difference. It's hard to remember at times that it was common that injustice took place in America, and people ignored it. They generally paid almost no public attention to it, especially when it happened to people they considered other. Just like in South Africa, where they recognized three distinct categories of people: black, colored, and white. America and Americans did not treat all people equally. Jewish people were not considered to be black, but they were not white either, and therefore faced many forms of injustice. And few people objected. The people of America were for many lifetimes silenced in the face of injustice, and it was rarely spoken of. I share this as we are on the eve of the anniversary of the so-called start of the war raging between Israel and Hamas, a war that has expanded to involve Hezbollah and the Lebanese people. I say so-called because in so many ways, there have been so many injustices committed on both sides over decades, even centuries, without recognition of the damage done by constantly making people feel unsafe simply for being who they are. When an elephant sits on your tail for long enough, you will do whatever you can to get others to help, to notice, and especially if they are acting as if there is nothing wrong with that elephant keeping you pinned in place. That was my thought when I heard of the attack of October 7th. A young woman, my cousin's granddaughter, lived in Tel Aviv. She had chosen to make her home there after graduating from UMass Amherst. So much has been wrong between Jews and Palestinians for so long, it is hard not to see injustice and feel as if the world is looking away. And while the world is not fully turned away, we are not proactively working to lift up the sanctity of all life as sacred. How can there be neutrality in the face of injustice? Injustice is something that can be much easier for some children to understand than we adults. They can see clearly harm being done and are far less likely to find excuses for why things are wrong and remain wrong when the adults around them are able to make situations a bit blurry, to justify certain things and compromise their own judgment for others who are more powerful, who know more of the details, more of the history. There are huge injustices in the world, but there are also ones that are little and less noted. One that touched my family this year is that dogs classified as pit bulls, once known as a nanny dog, have been deemed dangerous. They used to be known for their capacity for gentleness in caring for children. Now we fear them. Humans are the most dangerous animals on Earth, and we've been training other species to be fierce, to fight, to be vicious. It is not the dog who is dangerous, but the humans who have shaped their lives and filled them with trauma. My children learned last winter that those with pit bulls have an even harder time finding a place to rent, finding a home or homeowners insurance. Why do we not defend these animals from the injustice of the humans who want them to fight for their lives? This past week, Jews celebrated Rosh Hashanah, and at the end of this week, we will move forward and celebrate Yom Kippur. And that is what most people know of the High Holy Days. There is religious activity, however, throughout the 10 days between the two High Holy Days. They are the Aseret Yimei Teshuvah, or the 10 days of repentance. During these days, people apologize. They make amends. They let go of any wrongs they have done or that have been done to them, and do their very best to release those regrets. Forgiveness and amends are poured into the universe that they may dissipate and be reabsorbed, allowing us to move forward into the next year with a relatively clean slate. We learn to hold accountable and yet also to forgive. How can we learn to stop compartmentalizing injustice, to stop making it about individual acts of injustice, and fight all injustice simultaneously? I often admire the religious right for having figured out how to do that, to get together and fight all their causes collaboratively, where too often people on the liberal end of the scale choose a variety of causes. Are we going to save the whales or maybe the seals? Are we worried about spotted owls or redwoods? The truth is, we are worried about the world in which we live, and all of those are part of our world. We must learn to stop compartmentalizing. Stop making it about individual acts of injustice and fight all injustice simultaneously. We must remember the words of the Holocaust survivor, Elie Wiesel, who said, "We must take sides. Neutrality helps the oppressor, never the victim. Silence encourages the tormentor, never the tormented." Friends, there will always be challenges in the world. Offering love and compassion should never be a barrier, nor should fighting for justice for all. Most animals see the world that way and seek to offer love through puppy dog love and kitten purrs and kisses. We need to remember that we are blessed with the ability to have kindness. We're animals too, my friends. We can be compassionate. We can share what we know as signs of love. We can hold hands. We can hug people. We can come into another person's world with a donut, a cup of coffee, a cup of cider, just a smile. Compassion, kindness are not expensive. We can all give to others and seek a world in which injustice ceases to cause harm to the vulnerable among us. May we make amends this week and find by the end of this holiday period that we are at one with ourselves, with our world, with our understanding of our beliefs. Shalom, salam, and may it be so. Amen. I invite you to rise as we will sing our hymn. It is number 318 in the gray hymnal, and it is "We Would Be One." And now we will extinguish our chalice please remain standing and join with me in these words. We extinguish the flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we gather together again. Amen. Our service has ended. Please enjoy a brief postlude from Tom before gathering in the parish hall. And thank you for worshiping with us today. May you have a blessed holiday season and a wonderful Sunday on this gorgeous day. Amen.